In the 3rd year of my marriage to Ryan, his young secretary sent a photo of the two of them in bed directly to my phone. Without changing my expression, I calmly forwarded the photo to my lawyer. Not long after, my lawyer sent back the compiled documents. After reading them over, I didn't hesitate to sign my name on the divorce agreement. I then called Ryan, but a sweet, coquettish female voice picked up the phone instead. "Mr. Miller is unavailable right now. Can I take a message for you?" I hung up the phone. Taking the opportunity, I sent over the signed divorce agreement along with the lawsuit papers. When that secretary sent me another smug message, I finally let out a breath of relief. This marriage was finally over. Congratulations to Ryan, he's walking away with nothing. Both my family and Ryan's are in business, and we're relatively well off. But this wasn't some arranged commercial marriage. We were childhood sweethearts, growing up together from school uniforms to wedding attire. To outsiders, we were a perfect match made in heaven. Falling in love with Ryan was never anything strange. Our families had known each other for generations, and our mothers were best friends. I heard that even before I was born, they were already planning to match us. They even chose names for us that both included the meaning of promise. After we were born, Ryan and I were practically inseparable. From babbling infants to sunlit teenage years, he was a constant presence in my life. He's 2 months older than me and always acted like a little adult, insisting on being the big brother. On the first day of kindergarten, he held my hand as we walked in. Faced with an unfamiliar environment, I was so scared that I burst into tears. Little Ryan comforted me patiently, gave me candy, and even sang to me. Later in elementary school, I felt upset after doing poorly on a test. Once again, he showed up with my favorite candies, comforted me, and helped me correct my mistakes. When I got my first period in middle school and stained my skirt, I was overwhelmed with embarrassment and sat frozen in my seat. Ryan ran to the store and bought me pads. I still don't know how he managed to ask the clerk, but when he came back, he not only brought the pads, but also hand warmers and brown sugar water. When he handed them to me, I stared at his flushed face and couldn't help teasing. "Ryan, your face is so red." "You're seeing things," he said, covering his face with one hand while shoving everything into my arms with the other, including his school jacket. After I cleaned myself up and came out wearing his jacket, he was waiting outside. "Nora, does your stomach hurt?" he asked gently. "The clerk said girls get stomach cramps at times like this." As he spoke, he closely watched my expression. When I nodded, he panicked and blurted out, "Then I'll carry you to the hospital." His overreaction made me blush hard. "No need, it doesn't hurt that bad. I'll be fine after some rest at home." And so Ryan carried me on his back all the way home, attracting curious looks from passers-by. The sun was shining brightly that day. I can still remember the warmth of the sunlight on my skin and the redness of his ears. I leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Thank you, Ryan." That made his whole neck flush red. He tightened his grip on me and quickened his pace. I lay on his back, giggling the entire way. After we started middle school, I stopped calling him Big Brother like I used to and just called him by name. No matter how much he tried to coax me, I never changed my mind. Who would have thought that now, one little big brother would make him blush so hard? It was hilarious. What I didn't realize was that my own face wasn't any less red than his. That day, with our faces flushed, the two of us lit up the color of youth. Looking back now, I think that was the moment my heart first truly fluttered. The beginning of young love, how beautiful it was. That sweet, innocent affection carried us through our entire teenage years all the way until high school. At 18, Ryan invited the entire class to celebrate my birthday. He dressed up carefully, with his hair perfectly neat and a brooch I had given him pinned to his chest. Always calm and composed, he stood in front of me holding a bouquet of roses, but when he opened his mouth, he stuttered. "Nora, I like you. Will you be my girlfriend?" I nodded, tears welling in my eyes, and threw myself into his arms. Surrounded by our classmates' cheers and blessings, we hugged and kissed. At that moment, my feelings for Ryan reached their peak. Later, he told me that even though we had always liked each other, dating was different from just being childhood sweethearts. A relationship needed to feel special. It needed a sense of ceremony. Confessions, he said, should begin with a bouquet of flowers. That's why he chose my birthday, this meaningful day, to officially confess and turn us from childhood friends into boyfriend and girlfriend. Senior year of high school was hard and exhausting, but with Ryan by my side, all I ever felt was sweetness. We worked hard together, drilled through practice questions together, and with each exam we took, our scores steadily improved. Eventually, we both got into the same university. Honestly, both our families expected us to major in finance, so we could eventually take over the family businesses. But I personally loved math more. After some discussion between our families, I enrolled in the mathematics department, while Ryan went into finance. At the time, he told me, "Nora, you should just do what you love. I'll work hard to grow strong enough to protect you from everything." I believed him. My parents, who had watched him grow up since he was a child, trusted him completely too. They had already decided that one day, after they were gone, they would hand over the family company to their son-in-law and let him continue protecting their daughter. Knock, knock, knock. A soft knocking came at the door. It was Annie, our longtime housekeeper. "Miss, everything's packed. Mr. Lee is waiting downstairs." "Okay, let's go." Both Annie and Mr. Lee had known me since I was little. After Ryan and I got married, they moved with me into our new home and helped take care of everything. A year ago, I had already asked Annie to slowly start packing up my things in this house. She didn't know why I wanted to do that, but she treated me like her own daughter and followed my instructions without question. She personally packed everything that belonged to me, never letting anyone else touch a thing. She didn't even breathe a word of it to Ryan. By today, there was nothing left of mine in this house except for a few wardrobes of clothes Ryan had bought for me. I didn't want to take a single piece. Maybe that's why he never noticed over the past year that all my things had gradually disappeared. After we got together officially, our parents bought us a villa midway between both of our companies as our wedding home. I've lived here for 3 years now. Everything in this house was picked out by Ryan and me together. But I can no longer remember what I was feeling when we chose all of it. Without hesitation, I stepped outside. Mr. Lee had already loaded my suitcases into the trunk. A few other cars were parked behind his. That was the cleaning crew I'd hired. Once I left, they'd enter the villa and clear out everything that was left. They were professionals. Within a day, they would wipe out all traces of my life here. By tomorrow, this villa would be listed for a cut-rate sale by the real estate agency. A buyer had already been found. Once the cleaning was done, they'd be ready to move in with their luggage. On the road, my phone rang. It was Ryan. "Nora, did you call me just now?" I didn't answer. "Sorry, I was busy and didn't see. Don't be mad, honey. I won't do it again." His voice was still as clear and affectionate as ever. Whenever he spoke to me, it was always sticky sweet. After all, we had only been married for 3 years. He was only 25 now. Young, capable, wealthy. He was exactly the kind of golden bachelor that rich families loved. But too bad for them, a childhood sweetheart from a similarly powerful family had gotten to him first. And of course, he was also the type of domineering CEO all the young women adored. "Nora, why aren't you saying anything? Did you see the text I sent you?" I replied with a question instead. Ryan must have checked his phone again because his voice grew confused. "Huh? I don't see any text. What did you send me?" So it was deleted, just as I suspected. His secretary had erased it. I gave a small laugh and changed the subject. "When are you coming back?" Ryan had gone on a business trip to a nearby city for a major project. The plan was to be there for a week, but he was already 2 days overdue. "There's been a bit of a problem with the project," he said. "It'll take 2 more days." Ryan spoke in a pitiful tone, trying to sound endearing. "I miss you so much, Nora. I wish I could come home right now and hold you." I didn't comfort him like I usually did. Instead, I gave a faint smile and said, "There's a surprise waiting for you when you get home." "Nora, you're the best," he said, playing along as always. After a few more empty words, I hung up. While I was on the phone with Ryan, his secretary sent me several more photos. In one of them, Ryan was leaning against the headboard, speaking on the phone, wearing a loosely draped bathrobe, his expression soft and affectionate, whispering sweet words as if he were truly in love. Another photo showed 2 plane tickets to a luxury resort destination. It was clear from all of this, Ryan wasn't working on a project at all. He was hooking up with his secretary and the two of them were planning a romantic getaway. I didn't respond to the secretary. She had outlived her usefulness to me. The message I sent earlier was deliberate. I knew she would delete it. She always took the chance to erase things after provoking me. Even the call I made to Ryan showed her number, not mine. She probably thought she finally had a shot at replacing me. By deleting the messages, Ryan wouldn't know that I had already signed the divorce papers and filed the lawsuit. Once the court ruling came through, our marriage would be officially void. When that time came, the secretary could play dumb and swoop in like she had nothing to do with it. But what she didn't know was, she wasn't the first to challenge me. I can't even remember who sent me that first message. Maybe it was a classmate from Ryan's department during our 2nd year of marriage. Maybe it was a new intern at his company. There were too many young girls. Back then, Ryan was only flirting. Nothing had really happened yet. This secretary was the most successful of them all. After flirting with Ryan for over 6 months, he finally got what he wanted and made it into Ryan's bed. I looked at all the flashy social media posts he clearly meant for me to see, flaunting expensive gifts and luxurious outings, and I couldn't help but laugh. Did he not realize I could sue and reclaim all of those things? Of course, I had already instructed my lawyer to prepare the paperwork. Every penny Ryan spent on those women, starting from the first one to this secretary, I would take back. They were the ones handing me the evidence so eagerly. I had no idea why they were so brazen, why they thought provoking me would make me angry, make me collapse, make me scream and fight. But I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. I'd simply gather evidence and make sure every girl who knowingly got involved with a married man would face consequences for her actions. Of course, the man who couldn't control himself was the most disgusting of all. Those girls were after his money, hoping to climb the social ladder, but they chose the wrong way. And Ryan, he couldn't stay loyal and betrayed our marriage. That's unforgivable. My parents were already waiting at home. When my mom saw several suitcases in the car, she was visibly shocked. "Nora, what's going on? Why did you bring so much luggage?" "Mom, I divorced Ryan." My parents froze, thinking I was joking. "Nora, are you sick or something?" my mom asked. "Why would you want to divorce little Ryan?" She reached out to touch my forehead, worried. "Come inside and talk." I held my mom's hand and walked into the living room. My dad signaled for the others in the house to leave. "Nora, what happened?" he asked with concern. He knew that while I'd always been a bit pampered, I was never impulsive. I placed the printed documents on the table in front of them. They looked through the papers, puzzled at first, but their faces darkened the more they read. When they got to the most recent photos, my father slammed the documents down in fury. "That bastard. He cheated on you? Unbelievable. I'm gonna make his family give us a proper explanation." My mom was just as shocked. She held my hand, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Nora, I didn't know you were going through all this," she said, voice trembling. "If I'd known Ryan would turn out like this, I never would have let you two be together." Ryan was the boy they had watched grow up. They thought they knew him best. Who would have imagined that the person who once doted on their daughter would turn into someone who couldn't stay faithful after just a few years of marriage? Now, the filth he was hiding had been shoved right in front of their daughter's eyes. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" my mom asked softly. "It must have been so hard going through all this alone," my mom said, heartbroken. My dad stood up, his eyes bloodshot with anger. "I'm calling that bastard right now. And Mr. Miller too. I want to know how they raised their son." "Dad, don't call yet," I said calmly. My mom thought I was still emotionally attached to Ryan, and she grew upset. "Sweetheart, how can you still be protecting him after everything he's done to you?" "Ryan is in bed with his secretary right now. He's not picking up." "As for Mr. Miller," I added, still composed, "we'll tell him later." It was as if I weren't even talking about my own cheating husband. "Nora, are you out of your mind from anger?" my mom asked, panicked. "I'm fine, Mom," I reassured her. "I want to wait until Ryan comes back before telling the Millers. I have other things I need to take care of in the next few days. Please trust me. I'm not going to let myself be taken advantage of. After a long conversation, my parents finally calmed down and agreed. Meanwhile, Ryan had just landed with his secretary when he started receiving frantic calls from his former flings. One of them cried to him over the phone for a long time before hanging up. Ryan's face darkened. That was when he started to realize something was wrong. Nora hadn't called him even once throughout his entire trip. No wonder. No wonder she sounded so cold last time they spoke. She must have found out about the gifts he gave to those other girls. Nora had been pampered by both families her whole life. She had never endured this kind of humiliation. She loved him so much. She must be furious now. Ryan clenched his fists in frustration. These women had accepted so many gifts from him, yet they couldn't even keep quiet. And now they had the nerve to beg for his help? Ridiculous. He quickly tried to call Nora, but the call didn't go through. His secretary noticed his foul mood and tried to cozy up to him. "Mr. Miller, what's wrong? I told you once we got back, we're done." "Watch how you speak to me," Ryan snapped coldly. The secretary lowered her head in embarrassment, hurt. But Ryan had no time for her drama. He got in the car and immediately told the driver to take him home, ignoring the secretary who ran after the car in vain. When he arrived at the villa, the driver said awkwardly, "Sir, the gate won't open. I'm not sure what's going on. It usually opens automatically." "She's just throwing a tantrum," Ryan said, smiling faintly. "No big deal. I'll get out and handle it." He thought Nora was just pulling one of her old stunts, locking him out to make a point. It made him smile even more. That little girl of his still had the same fiery spirit. He got out of the car and tried the fingerprint scanner. Access denied. He entered the code manually. Still denied. Exasperated, Ryan called out toward the house. "Okay, Nora, I'm back. Let me explain first, all right?" He soon heard footsteps from inside the villa. Just like when they were kids, Nora could never stay mad at him for long. No matter how angry she got, once he sweet-talked her, she'd always come running to open the door. But Ryan's smile froze the moment he saw the person who opened it. Who the hell was this man? Why was a stranger standing at the door of his house? Was he a newly hired housekeeper? The man wore loungewear and leaned halfway out the door, asking, "Can I help you?" "Who are you?" Ryan demanded, his voice cold. The man frowned, confused. "Why are you messing with my gate and yelling at my door? And now you're asking who I am," Ryan sneered. "This is my house. Where's Nora? Did she ask you to play along with this little act of hers? Let me in. I don't want to talk to you." The man laughed in disbelief and pointed toward the main gate. The man pointed at the villa behind him. "I don't know who you are, and I have no idea what you're talking about. But if I had to guess, you're probably looking for the previous owners of this place. I don't know where they moved, but I bought this house 3 days ago. Everything was done legally and properly." "No, that's impossible," Ryan said, his voice growing tense. "This is Nora's and my marital home. There's no way it was sold to you." The property management staff had arrived by then, drawn by the commotion. They recognized Ryan and tried to explain the situation politely. The man was, indeed, the new legal owner of the villa. But Ryan refused to believe it. Finally, out of courtesy, the man opened the door and allowed Ryan to come inside and see for himself. Once inside, Ryan stood frozen. Not a single thing remained that belonged to him or Nora. The rooms were empty and bare. The curtains, the carpets, every item they had picked up together, were gone. The man watched Ryan's dazed expression and sneered. "I told you, this house was sold to me." "What? Didn't Nora tell you? I guess she really was done with you if she even sold your wedding home. Looks like you broke her heart for real this time." Ryan stumbled out of the villa, completely disoriented. By the time he came looking for me, I had just gotten off a call with my lawyer. The housekeeper had informed my mom that Ryan was at the door. Furious, she was ready to throw him out herself. "Let him in," I said. "Mom, please don't get upset just yet." When Ryan came in, he tried to greet my mom, but she ignored him completely. He gave an awkward smile, then crouched down in front of me, his voice still soft and full of affection. "I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't mean to make you sad, Nora." I kept my head down and said nothing. He continued, "Nora, there's nothing between me and those women. It's that the gifts were part of a company project reward. My assistant was the one who distributed them and accidentally used my personal account. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd misunderstand. Ryan had clearly rehearsed his excuse. After all, he believed I was just a pampered rich girl who didn't understand how businesses operated. And he knew how much I loved him. He'd known me for over 20 years. He was certain that if he apologized fast enough, I'd forgive him. That had always worked before. But this time, I simply looked up into his eyes and asked quietly, "Was the scenery in Cloud City beautiful?" His face changed instantly. "You knew?" he whispered. "You still have your secretary's perfume on you," I said. Ryan rushed to explain. "That's just something I brushed against by accident. Nora, please don't misunderstand. You don't know how many times I've tried to call you. I sent you messages, so many, but you never responded." I let the tears fall as I looked at him. They streamed down my face, slow, silent, sorrowful. I had practiced that look in the mirror so many times, perfecting the angle that made me look fragile and heartbroken. "Nora, don't cry." Ryan panicked. "I can explain everything, I swear." He reached out to wipe my tears, but I pulled away from him. Without saying a word, I picked up my phone and opened the folder where I had saved every single message sent by his many so-called close female friends. One by one, I showed him all the screenshots and photos. When he saw the very first message, his face turned pale. By the time I scrolled to the ones from his secretary, from the day their flirting began half a year ago to the inappropriate photos just days earlier, his complexion was deathly white. Each image and text made his earlier explanations sound emptier, more pathetic, more fake. "Nora, Ryan's hands trembled as he tried to reach for me again, but I stepped back. "It's all fake," he stammered, desperate. "They're all lying, I swear." I stayed silent, tears still falling. Then I said quietly, "Let's get a divorce." "No," Ryan blurted out. "I won't divorce you. I'll never divorce you." He dropped to his knees, frantically swearing, "Nora, I was drunk that night. I didn't know what I was doing. I never meant to hurt you. Please, don't leave me." He was still lying, still trying to twist the truth. But I felt satisfied. Because this exact pathetic struggle, that's what I wanted. That way, I'd have more time to settle the financial side of things. "Nora, don't divorce me. I'm begging you," Ryan pleaded. "I swear I'll never make you cry again." He kept talking, trying to convince me for a long time before I finally gave a faint, broken response. "Just go. I don't want to see you right now. Let me calm down." Ryan didn't want to leave, but my mom called the staff to have him thrown out. The moment he was gone, I wiped away my tears and got ready for the meeting with my lawyer. While my mom watched me chat and laugh with the attorney, she thought I was emotionally unstable from heartbreak. But she didn't know. I'd been planning for this moment for 3 years. The harvest had finally come. How could I not be happy? When did I stop loving Ryan? Even I couldn't remember. Maybe it was one of those bright, breezy afternoons. After we started college, we rarely saw each other. Our majors were in different departments, and we were so busy with schoolwork that we barely had time to meet. At first, we still saw each other in the evenings, but eventually, it became just weekends. We talked on the phone every day, and our years of love didn't seem to change with distance. Every time we met, we still felt close, like nothing had changed. Then one day, I saw someone confessing to Ryan on the campus confession wall. But I trusted him, and even teased him about it. Ryan was handsome, came from a rich family, of course people would like him. I felt secure enough not to be jealous. But slowly, I noticed that during the rare moments we spent together, he kept bringing up another girl's name. It made me uncomfortable, though I didn't think too much of it at first. Until one day, I saw a video posted on the confession wall by someone who had accidentally caught them on camera. The title read, "The couple I've been shipping is real. So sweet, I'm living for this." I clicked on it, curious. In the video, a handsome guy and a sweet-looking girl sat close together, their heads tilted toward each other, smiling as they talked. I couldn't hear clearly what the girl said, but Ryan looked at her with that familiar, doting smile and reached out to gently pat her head. Their eyes were full of warmth, and with the sunlight bathing them in a soft glow, it looked like a romance scene, straight out of a movie. It was beautiful. If that boy hadn't been my boyfriend, Ryan, I might have found it cute too. My hands were trembling with rage as I scrolled down to the comments. That's when I found out the girl in the video was the same one who had confessed to him earlier. Ryan once told me he didn't even know her, but commenters mentioned her name, and it was the same name he'd been bringing up so often lately. So the signs had always been there. I stumbled out of bed and rushed to the door, determined to confront him face to face. But as I yanked the door open, I ran into my roommate who had just gotten back. She saw how frantic I was and quickly asked, "Nora, where are you going?" "I'm going to find Ryan," I snapped. "Go back." My roommate knew all about my relationship with Ryan. She hesitated for a second before gently grabbing my arm. "Nora, do you want to see what you look like right now?" My mind was a complete mess. Anger and heartbreak clouded all logic. I shook my head and tried to push past her, but she pulled me back into the room and dragged me in front of the full-length mirror. I looked up and saw a woman I didn't recognize. Her face was twisted in anger. Her hair was a tangled mess, her cheeks wet with tears, one pajama button undone, and she wasn't even wearing shoes. Who was this? I stared blankly at the reflection. The woman in the mirror stared back, just as confused and disoriented, but no less wrecked. How could this be me? I'd never looked so broken. "Calm down," my roommate said gently, sitting me down and handing me a glass of water. It was obvious she had seen the same video. That night, she listened as I cried and cursed for hours. In the end, she looked at me with soft eyes and said, "Nora, you're Nora Foster. You're supposed to be confident, radiant, full of life. You're not meant to look like this." Her family was very poor. Paying for college had always been a struggle. She worked part-time constantly to earn tuition. Later, I asked my family to step in and cover all her school expenses. I even helped her get a tutoring job at a friend's house. Last year, when something happened to her family, it was me who arranged the hospital and treatment for her mom, and she fully recovered. She was grateful and often said I was her little ray of sunshine. Now, hearing her say it again, I instinctively turned to look at the mirror. The reflection still looked like a ghost. Hair messy, face pale and puffy from crying. But my roommate's words had struck a chord. I was Nora Foster. I was the heir to a wealthy family. I wasn't someone who existed just to orbit around Ryan Miller. I decided to confront him that weekend. After all, we'd grown up together, childhood sweethearts for so many years. I truly loved him and had pictured a life with him. But if he had fallen for someone else, then as angry as I was, I believed we should part on civil terms. What I never expected was for Ryan to show up that weekend as if nothing had happened. He brought my favorite cake, smiled like always, and treated me with the same tender affection as before. I couldn't understand what he was trying to do, so I asked him directly. "Ryan," I said, "are you cheating on me?" He denied it immediately. I showed him the video I had saved. After watching it, he sighed, not angry, not guilty, just gently indulgent. "Nora, that's just the camera angle. We were in a group talking about a project. Look, there are other people in the frame too. Are you jealous, sweetheart?" Then he reached out and touched my head. "My precious Nora's getting jealous. I'll be more careful from now on. I won't give anyone the chance to start rumors." He was as gentle as ever, his gaze full of affection, his palm warm as it rested on my head, but I felt like I'd been thrown into an icy pit. 20 years. I'd known Ryan for 20 years, and it was only now that I realized in his heart I was nothing but a fool. The closeness, the intimate body language in that video, he thought it meant nothing, and his explanation was full of holes, thrown together without care. If I had asked one or two more questions, he would have slipped. When I didn't say anything, he gently took my hand, gave it a little shake, and coaxed, "Come on, Nora, we're going to get married someday, right? You have to have more faith in me." Yes, married. I was supposed to marry Ryan, so that meant he could flirt with others in the meantime? And when he was done playing, I'd still be waiting at home like a loyal little wife? In that moment, the man I had loved for so many years suddenly felt rotten to the core. Still, I didn't sentence him for this one thing. I started paying closer attention. And then I found them, several girls who were clearly involved with Ryan. There was no physical cheating, not that I could prove, but the way they talked, the way they acted, there was no mistaking it. The intimate gestures, the flirty tones, it was obvious. And they all made it clear that this was just the kind of man Ryan was. I had been blind. It had taken me 20 years to see him for who he really was. The more I thought about everything we'd shared over the years, the more disgusted I felt. From that day on, I secretly enrolled in finance courses. I pushed myself until I was mentally exhausted every day. I needed to know, was Ryan with me because he truly loved me, or because he wanted something else? I was carrying the legacy of generations of wealth. I couldn't let it all fall apart in my hands. Thankfully, I had my roommate. When she found out my plan, she immediately changed her major to finance. After graduation, I placed her inside the Miller Group. After all, it was too easy for the future Mrs. Miller to get a classmate a job in the family business. I even specifically asked Ryan to take special care of her, so she moved through the company under his name. No one suspected a thing. No one doubted the love-struck, foolish girl they thought I was. All these years, everyone only saw how deeply I loved Ryan. Whenever gossip reached my ears, I always chose to believe in him. I never once confronted him. Ryan even asked me why I didn't seem to care about anything. He wanted me to stay home and be his quiet, devoted wife. Everyone said I was the epitome of a rich heiress in love, graduating from a top university just to rush into marriage and become a full-time housewife. I had a massive family business behind me, but they said I didn't care about any of it. All the business projects had been handed over to Ryan to manage. Everyone said that eventually, Ryan would inherit both the Miller Group and Foster Corp. Once that happened, the two families would officially merge. Rumors like that had been circulating among high society ever since our wedding. It was something everyone tacitly acknowledged, that the Foster Corporation would eventually be absorbed by the Miller Group. That's why all those savvy CEOs scrambled to collaborate with Ryan, trying to get ahead of the curve, hoping that when the Millers took over Foster, they'd get a piece of the pie too. They weren't wrong about one thing: the two companies were about to merge. But not the way they imagined. Because it wasn't the Miller Group taking over Foster, it was Foster Corp, my Foster Corp, taking over the Miller Group. After my lawyers finished reviewing the evidence and documents, Ryan's entire net worth, including his shares in the Miller Group, will be transferred to my name. Every time one of Ryan's women tried to provoke me during our marriage, I'd quietly take a Miller project and hint that Foster was interested in partnering. A man who just got caught cheating is always the most guilty, the most eager to please. That's how I diverted nearly all of the Miller Group's most profitable projects to Foster. Ryan never once questioned it. In fact, he approved those transfers quite happily, probably afraid I might grow suspicious. After all, our families were close. Wasn't it all staying in the family anyway? I played my part for 5 years, long enough for everyone around me to believe I loved Ryan deeply. So much so that when our families arranged the marriage, no one even brought up a prenuptial agreement. That's how much they believed in my love. And Ryan? He trusted me blindly. Before the wedding, as a gesture of sincerity, he signed a prenuptial agreement in front of both families. It stated that if we were ever to divorce for any reason, he would leave with nothing. Worse for him, he even added a supplementary clause. If the divorce happened because he wronged me, he would forfeit all of his shares in the Miller Group to me. No compensation required. Back then, Ryan was 22. He held my hand with eyes full of love and said, "Nora, I swear I'll never hurt you. This prenup will never come into effect. It's just my way of showing you that you'll always have a way out." And me? I cried. I remember how I cried. I clung to him, refusing to let him sign something so unlucky. But he insisted. And under the watchful eyes of both families, he signed it himself. Both sides even went so far as to have it notarized. Afterward, I threw a little tantrum, demanding the contract be locked away in a dark drawer. Our parents laughed, saying I was still such a child. No one ever mentioned it again. Even Ryan forgot that I still had it. What he didn't know was that the moment I got that agreement, I locked it in my private safe, encrypted and hidden away like a precious jewel. This document, it was Ryan's self-dug grave, and I guarded it with extreme care. When my lawyer returned again, he brought a thick stack of documents. I reviewed every page carefully. When I saw the latest Miller project officially transferred into Foster's hands, I couldn't help but laugh. "You won," I said with a grin. "You even got this one for me?" The woman beside me, my roommate Yuan, laughed too. "Even a mosquito is still meat. No way we're wasting something Ryan spent a whole week out of town working on. Might as well accept his hard work with gratitude. Yuan had been working at the Miller Group for years now. She was my inside partner, the one who helped coordinate everything. We were perfectly in sync. She was grateful for the help I gave her years ago. But to me, she was the one who saved me. If she hadn't pulled me back that night, if she hadn't brought me back to my senses, I might still be stuck in that dream. And I probably would have ended up with a cheating husband and my entire inheritance handed to someone else. Sure, I could have been Mrs. Miller when I was young and beautiful. But once youth faded, I would have been kicked aside and turned into a joke. My whole life reduced to a cautionary tale. I reviewed the final documents and signed my name with confidence. Yuan was now an executive at the Miller Group and held a small percentage of shares. Over the past few years, she quietly acquired loose shares from various minor shareholders. Now she transferred all of them to me. That put my ownership stake above both Ryan and his father. I waited patiently for a few more days until the court verdict finally arrived. Thanks to the prenuptial agreement and the fact that Ryan was at fault, the court ruled directly in favor of divorce. The moment I received the court ruling, I called for an emergency shareholders meeting at the Miller Group. At the same time, Ryan was still standing outside my house with a bouquet of flowers in his arms, claiming he would win me back no matter what, begging for my forgiveness. Mr. Miller, his father, sat at the meeting table, watching me with a look I'd never seen before. As I calmly presented everything to the board, it was like he no longer even recognized me. When he saw which of the Miller Group's projects had ended up under Foster Corp's control, along with the rest still barely hanging on under the family name, the other shareholders exchanged loaded glances. These men didn't care about family drama. They cared about dividends. Whoever made them money, they'd stand behind them. When I finished laying everything out, I smiled and looked around the table. So, does anyone here still object to the proposed candidate for the new chairperson of the board? All hands raised in support, except Mr. Miller's. After all, nearly every profitable Miller project was now tied to Foster. If Foster walked away, the Miller Group would collapse. It wasn't a vote, it was survival. Nora, Mr. Miller said quietly, voice shaky, like he'd aged 10 years in a day, we're still family. I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, I said gently, but I finalized my divorce with Ryan this morning. We're no longer family, just business partners. That was when it finally hit him. He remembered the prenup Ryan had signed years ago. He tried to object. But Nora, Ryan didn't do anything wrong. The court wouldn't rule like this. I smiled and tossed a thick file across the table. If sleeping with his secretary and letting photos of them in bed end up on my phone isn't considered a fault in the marriage, then I have nothing more to say. Mr. Miller went completely silent. His hands trembled as he flipped through the documents, face growing red with fury. He called Ryan to the company and exploded on him the moment he arrived. Ryan had no idea what was going on until he saw the divorce judgment himself. That's when he finally broke down. This isn't real. The court can't have ruled this way. I never got notified. It's fake. I'm going to sue. But the judgment spelled it out clearly. Ryan had been informed of both the divorce petition and the fault-based lawsuit. His failure to respond was considered consent. There were no grounds for appeal. I never saw anything, he muttered, stumbling as he came looking for me, his voice hoarse. Nora, you didn't really send me the divorce papers, did you? You're lying. You wouldn't do this. I sent them, I replied with a calm smile, nodding for my assistant to block his way. Still smiling sweetly, I added, I sent the documents the same night you slept with your secretary. It's all clearly time-stamped in the evidence. You were informed, you just didn't bother to read it. Ryan's face went white. He suddenly remembered during that call I'd asked if he'd seen the message. He said no, it was the secretary. She'd used his phone while he was in the shower. She had deleted the messages. It was her. Ryan collapsed onto the floor, overwhelmed by regret and rage. Mr. Miller kicked him hard, furious and disappointed. Apologize to her, he barked. But I had no interest in watching their little guilt-ridden performance. Mr. Miller, I said coolly, you know, I can't even stand the sight of Ryan anymore. He should resign from his position in the company. I don't want to see him again. If he does that, I promise he'll get every cent of the dividends he's entitled to. But if not... I knocked my knuckles against the resignation letter on the table, my voice turning cold. Then the Miller Group can cease to exist. And right now, Ryan is coming with me to finalize the divorce paperwork. Ryan tried again to resist, to plead, but his father slapped him hard across the face. What more do you want? Do you want to drag this family into the ground too? In the end, Mr. Miller personally dragged Ryan along to complete the legal procedures. Even as he held the finalized divorce certificate in his hands, Ryan stood frozen, muttering in disbelief. How? Nora loved me. She loved me so much, she would never actually divorce me. I didn't look back. I went straight home. Not long after, I won the lawsuit to reclaim the marital assets. The court granted me full compensation. Finally, I sat my parents down and told them everything I had done over the years. My mother cried uncontrollably, out of heartbreak and guilt. My father, who had spent his life in the business world. After the dust settled, my father wasted no time beginning the process for me to formally inherit Foster Corp. I was immediately swept up in the business, transferring shares, finalizing ownership, attending endless meetings and dinners. Yuan was now the second largest shareholder in the Miller Group, and she was just as busy as I was. We were constantly on the move, heads spinning from the pace, but even with all the exhaustion, I couldn't deny how good it felt to hold real power and wealth in my hands. At events now, no one called me Mrs. Miller anymore. They called me Vice Chairwoman. No one mentioned that foolish, love-blinded rich girl anymore. I was no longer anyone's accessory. I would never again lose myself for anyone else. When I got the news that Ryan had been arrested, I had just signed a major joint venture with a state-owned enterprise. I only found out later, once the official statement was released, that he had learned the truth. His secretary had deleted my messages, which led to the court ruling the divorce as uncontested. He blamed her entirely for the loss of his marriage, for the fact that his family had been pushed out of the Miller Group. In a fit of rage, he shoved her down the stairs. She died instantly. I barely paused to process it, just a quiet sigh and a few words of reflection, then I was immediately drawn into another promising deal Yuan had just brought in. Those old memories had nothing to do with me anymore. Just like Ryan once said to me long ago, I, Nora Foster, was always meant to live facing the sun. Good night.